Today we're going to talk about doing a real-time landscaping architect 3D model. When you launch the program, it opens up to this screen here, and simply press start a new design if you want to launch a new one, or open a save design if you want to open up something that you've already been working on. So today we're going to start a new design. So we'll click up here, and you're left with your interface to look at and design from scratch. So in the system pavers world, this grid right here is basically our drawing sheet in a 2D form. 2D meaning it's only two-dimensional. There's no 3D format to this page here. There is a button down here at the bottom, that perspective, that transforms this grid sheet into the 3D world. And it just lays it flat on it, and then we can build up vertically, which you can't do in a drawing, obviously. There's ways to move this around, which we'll get into how to do that. But for now, let's start in the 2D realm, which is in this plan tab right down here. One thing I like to do, if you zoom in, and if on your mouse, if you have a wheel, ideally you'll just wheel up to zoom in and wheel out to zoom out. So if we wheel in, we'll notice that each of these squares defaults to 2 feet. I feel like that's not enough to get enough detail. I like to do it to 6 inches. So the way that we do that, we go to settings. You go to snap and grid settings, and then change the grid size down here, which defaults to 2 feet, to 0.5, which is a ½ foot, because these are done in foot increments, and then just OK, and you'll notice that our grids went much smaller. So our grids are now a ½ foot. You can toggle on and off the grid itself by selecting this grid icon here. So if you select it, it turns off. This selects on. There's a magnet here too, which will lock any move you make into the grid itself. For example, if I'm going to take building and we're going to draw a house, if I have this magnet on, then each thing locks into the grid. You can see how it moves. It just moves per grid increment, which is good because it keeps things locked into straight lines and works in a grid without having to freehand draw anything. If you turn off the magnet, then you can see how it flows and just follows your cursor here. So for at least the time being, I think it's best to start with the magnet on, and that way you lock into the grid for clean movements. So we're going to start by building our house. This one here, we're not following a plan of an existing house. Sometimes you can use near maps, sometimes you can use plot plans that you can load directly into the program, and then you can build our 3D model on top of it. This case, we're just going to freehand a design, meaning we're just going to come up with it on the spot. So the first thing we're going to build and where we start is with the house. In the building tab at the top, you've got all these options to build things in a 3D world. We're going to build it on a 2D grid like we've done. Somewhere in the middle we'll start, and then we will click house, and then we're going to draw our house. So if we zoom in and you click anywhere in a corner, you click it once. When you drag away, and I'm not holding the left click button, I'm just dragging once I've already clicked it, I can go to the distance that I want. So say this house is in the front is 20. There's a return for 5 feet. It goes across for another, say 25. And it goes to the side yard. I can zoom out again with my wheel on my mouse to get further. Say it comes back 29, 30 feet, continues over 20, and each time I want it to stop, I'm just clicking the mouse here. Left click all the way over, and then it shows you with this dotted dashed line when you're actually perpendicular to the beginning. So you click this, you go back to the front, click it, and then it creates this shape that's the house itself. Here's a helpful tool to move things around, so you can zoom in and out. But if you want to move left or right, if you press down the wheel on your mouse, a hand will show, and then you can move the entire screen with the pressed down wheel. So I can zoom in and out by rolling the wheel, and if I press the wheel on most mouses, I can then drag however I want, which is really helpful if I'm really zoomed in and then want to drag over to some detail over here. So zoom in and out with the wheel, hold the wheel to move around. Okay, so this is our plan view, which is a 2D. If we come down to the perspective, we'll see that now the house is on this 3D plane. We can then, in this world, zoom in, does the same thing, zooms in and out just like our plan view. And just like on our plan view, if you hold the wheel, you can then do this. You can drag. So zoom in and out with the wheel, and then drag by holding down the wheel. The last command you can do in 3D that you couldn't in the other one, if you hold the right click button, you can actually rotate left and right. So once again, for the commands for viewing in 3D, wheel in and out will zoom in and out. Holding the wheel down will allow you to drag and pan all around. And then the right click, holding it down, will allow you to do this kind of thing. One interesting thing you can do, the drag, is not only left and right like you can do on the plan view, but you can also move in and out with more precision than you can with the zoom. So if I want to come here, I can zoom around, I can rotate, I can zoom at this level, I can rotate up and down and around. It's kind of like a joystick, but with different buttons on the mouse that you can do. Getting proficient with this will allow you to move really quickly with detail. It'll allow you to find the best angles to take a screenshot eventually when you are finished and want to share something with the client. Having a good, working knowledge of what these buttons are can allow you to position yourself the best. The last thing you can do in this view to move around is if you press the plus button, it raises you. If you press the minus button on the keyboard, you can go up and down only. So that's the only thing off the mouse that I ever use. Up and down is just the plus button and the minus button next to the backspace on your keyboard will lower me. So take a look on the right side here. I'll put up a graphic that shows you what those are again for your shortcuts. So maybe pause here and take a bit of time to play around with how you can actually, in 3D, do all these commands to control your environment. Okay. The plan view, I'll put up the commands again here to show you that you can spin the wheel for out and in to zoom, and then you can hold the wheel down to left and right. The right mouse is just your normal right click that gives you options, but you don't really use this all that much. So the right click doesn't work in the plan view, only in the perspective. Okay. So now here that we've got the house built and it matches the design that we want to do, we want to modify a little bit what this looks like. So if I allow this space to come out, and it shows all my options for the house itself. So whatever is selected in this screen will give you further options here to modify. The first thing we want to do is match the siding to the siding of the house. So the house I want to build is like a tan stucco. So the wall material right now is set to lap board in this color. If I double click it, it's going to pull up all my options to change the siding. So if I want to do stucco, I'm going to come all the way down to stucco. I'm going to find a color that looks like my tan is, say, this one. And all of a sudden, everything just went stucco. Easy as that. If I want to change it again, I just double click and choose a different color. If it's a little dark, I can change it. The size and the angle, you don't have to really worry about stucco because messing with that won't do much to the stucco itself. Next, I want to mess with the roof material and change that. Um, in my head, I'm seeing the roof as like a Spanish style shingle. Um, so if I double click this, it's going to give the same thing. I'm going to go to tile and scroll down and find my Spanish style shingle. Yeah, I'm thinking something like this. There you go, red roof in. Very nice. Um, in the house that we see, it doesn't have um, this trim on the side. House that I see, meaning the one I'm picturing in my head. Um, this button right here allows you to remove or add in the corner trim accordingly. If there is trim and it's kind of like a dark wood or something, you can keep the trim in, double click that, and then choose the color that makes sense to have your trim. You can start here. You can really choose whatever you want. If I want to find a dark brown, I can just find the color that I want. Something like that, press OK, and all of a sudden I've got dark trim. But in this case, I don't want trim at all, so I'm going to turn it off. The next thing I can do here is I can adjust the wall height. So I can do this and just slide it and get my wall height. I can incrementally change it by inch just by clicking this. Or I can actually turn in or type in 18 feet. Everything defaults to feet when you type it in here. So if I want 18 feet 6 inches, I can do 8.5, and that'll go 18 feet 6 inches. You can also type in a specific height by going 18 feet, and 9 inches. So feet is the apostrophe, inches are the quote, just like normal. So that's written 18.9, press enter, and that's that. Elevation actually lifts the house off the grid itself, like that. So we don't need a floating house 5.5 feet tall. So we can just press 0 and it'll go back down to the bottom. So a story height on a house is roughly 8 to 10 feet. So if you've got a 2-story house, 18, 20 feet, something like that works. So now we are looking at this house and we're going all the way around it, and our whole house is raised 18 feet. The pitch on the roof here is the next thing. So the pitch can be adjusted to bring the roof flatter. If it goes down, the roof goes flatter. And if the pitch goes up, these are degrees. So now it's really quite the castle-y roof right there. It defaults to 35 degrees, which I guess is standard in roof building. But a lot of times I'll find that I'll need to trim it down a little bit because they're not such sharp angles. The overhang defaults to a foot, which is the overhang from the wall to the roof. You can make it way longer if for some reason the house has longer ones. Generally, a foot is sufficient. Upper offset and ridge cap width, I usually don't mess around with. But if we do upper offset, it doesn't do too much to it. But the ridge cap width, I think this is the ridge cap there, makes it wider. That's a detail that's not super important because a lot of times we're not showing the roof at all. So we're just going to keep it what it was at 9 inches. You can add gutters, which it is here, or you can take it and remove them. And that's about it. That's really all you need to mess around with to get the siding and to get the roof to where you want it to be. The next thing I do, I usually stay in 3D here in the perspective view to add the details in the doors and the windows, things like that. So you want to have another window open or your iPad or something to have the picture of the house so you can try to get it as accurately as possible. Sometimes you can use Google Maps, sometimes you can use Nearmap to see an oblique angle and really see where the windows are. But I think the details here really make it and take this to the next level. So if you're going to click on the house and add a door, so this has to be selected for you to add a door to it. You select door, It gives you the symbol that's going to show up on the plan view, and then the model is going to show up on the house here. So this is going to be the back of the house. I don't want a front door here, so I'm going to double click this. I'm going to go, these entry is all your front doors. Your garage is all your garage doors. Your legacy entry are actual images that show up from images that they take. They don't look as good on the house. I usually stick to entry and garage. Amar is an actual brand like Belgard or Keystone, something like that. That's it might even be Amar. I think it's Amar. Is one of the high-end producers of doors. So you can select from Amar garage doors. And those are all their models, which is really nice. But if we want the back, we just go to patio and we find a patio door that makes sense. I like the French door on this house. So we're going to select the French door here. We're going to match it up roughly to where it is on the actual house. And I'm going to click there. I don't really like that dark trim around it. And the only reason there's a dark trim there is because I turned off the trim on the house, but I kept that color dark. So I'm going to backtrack here. I'm going to select the house. I'm going to go down to trim color, go back to white, and that turns it back to white. And now we're looking a lot better. It also made the trim on the gutter white. Okay, so that's the door. Maybe we want to add a man door on this side here. Maybe it comes out of the kitchen or it comes out of a bedroom or something. So let's go back to door. Let's select patio. Let's see if there's a single door. There's not. So we're going to go to entry, find a similar style door. That one will work. And we're just going to move it along the grid, along the house, to have it like right there. And that's it. Those are our doors. Now let's add some windows to the house. So again, we're going to select the actual house. You have to select whatever you're going to add the window to. So you select the house, click window. There's a ton of windows. There's awnings, there's gable vents, there's glass block windows, which aren't really used anymore. But there's legacy windows, again, which are photos that you can add. I generally don't mess around with that. Shutters you can add after the fact. Window boxes you can add after the fact. But windows is generally where you're going to end up here. So let's use a double window with the panes. This same thing up here has no panes for different views. And if you come down here, some don't have panes at all. Actually, let's use this one and put in a big picture window. So we're going to hold it here and click it, and then we're going to adjust the width. So let's make it a nice long window, maybe from their living room. And once we've gotten the right width, we are going to move it over and kind of center it roughly in between. And I can move this over, holding down my right click and seeing, yeah, it looks about right there. Now this green, when we render an actual photo, will turn off and it will show a reflection of whatever's in the model. But for now, showing green is fine. We can adjust the elevation up and down there. We can go by the inch, or we can just type in the 3 feet that we want it at. We can adjust the height if we want a really tall window. Most windows aren't like that. We can go back to what it was and match it to the height there, 4 feet tall. We get a nice picture window there. Let's add some other windows for the upper level and for the side face, and then we'll call it a day with the windows. So select the house. We're going to add windows to that house. We're going to add some normal windows here. We're going to add these windows. Now here's a trick to make this go even quicker. If you have this and you're hovering over it, but you hold control. So hold down control as you click. It's going to keep that window active and duplicate it. So you don't have to do that step of adding and finding a window each time. So I'm holding control. I'm holding control and I'm moving. And I'm just going to add these windows. I can stack them, make them look like they're wider. And there you have it. I've got a bunch of windows now. I guess I can throw some on this side. Holding control again. And now in a very short amount of time, I just put in a bunch of windows that match that of the house. I am going to click here, which is going to give me my normal cursor back, this arrow, and I can move all around and see that I've got windows here. One window, hold shift, wait till the other one, dotted line highlights, click it, and now I've got both. So I want to copy and paste these so I can use them for the windows above the house. So copy is Control C on a Windows computer, Control C, and then paste is Control V. All of a sudden, it just duplicated that. What I can do to duplicate these windows and raise them is just go to my elevation on the side and raise them all the way up to where it looks like the photo, and then move them to center over the windows below. And all of a sudden, I've got now double windows, and I don't have to individually add windows as I go. Again, so I'm going to click this, hold Shift, and click this one. I'm going to Control C on Windows, Control V to paste it, and then drag these over here. All of a sudden, I've got all my windows. And I'm going to copy Control C, Control V, this one here. And all of a sudden, I've got, that's a midpoint. It will stop you and show you where the midpoints are so you can evenly space on these. And then I'm going to hold Shift and select all of those. And then Control V is paste. And I'm just going to drag them all over here. For some reason, didn't take all of them. Okay. So now we've got a ton of windows there. I got sidetracked and realized that those windows again are higher than here. So all I would do here is highlight these two, highlight the first, hold Shift, click the second one, and then just on my elevation here, I'm going to incrementally click down the inch so that they roughly match the top of the door frame. Now we've got a bunch of windows that make sense. We can scroll back with our wheel and see that the whole side of the house now looks pretty good. You should probably use some top windows too. I selected all of those, Control C, Control V, raise the elevation, move them over to the side, and those should be right over the top. And we easily duplicated and raised 3 windows. Now we got a lot of windows in this house, and it looks really good. Okay. When we go back to the plan view, we will see that all these windows are marked with holes in the wall, the white gaps. When we start building our patio, I don't like these doors obscuring what's below it. So the way I change this is just click on the door, double click the symbol up here, and simply change it to door. So it shows as a box and not a swinging door itself. So if you double click that, you'll see that now that swinging door gets off my model. And I have an unobstructed view to whatever patio we're going to build below, because that's our next step. Okay, so in our design, we're going to use pavers, obviously, to build our patio. So very simply at the top here, under the building tab, we're going to go to patio, select patio, and we're going to start building. Don't worry about material now. We're going to dial that in after. But we're going to find our point. And remember, when we've got the magnet here, it's going to lock in to all our grid points, but especially to our corners of the house itself. So we're going to start on this corner, and our design called for going out 20 feet over to the other corner of the house and all the way back here and over. It's going to populate this patio, which is a super old school style patio. It's probably not something we're going to have in a design. It defaults to this double border, also probably not something that we're ever going to have. So if we go back to perspective, we can see that now our patio is on the ground, and it's a lovely 20 by 20 roughly patio in the backyard. Now let's find an actual material that we want to use. So just like changing the sides of the house and the roof itself, the material here is your paver field, and your border is obviously your border. So let's double click the material for the paver field and find something that's going to work. So the cool thing about the patio materials is that it has all these options that you can choose, but it also has Belgard, is Eldorado stone, which is like your stack stone veneer, EP Henry, which are just random pavers here, Lampus, and then Unilock. I find that Unilock is probably the closest to the actual Belgard we use. This Belgard is pretty old and has mostly walls. So if you go to Unilock and then mess around with which region, you'll find something that works for the Belgard that we have. So each region has pavers and they have walls themselves with colors that correspond. So for some reason, we decide we want to use Michigan. We're going to choose Michigan, pavers. And for this color house, I want some sort of tan-ish. This one right here is what I want to use. Beacon Hill Smooth Birch Random. So I'm going to double click it, and it's going to change my whole thing there, which looks great. So we zoom in so we can kind of see what's going on here. I'm going to use this to get a good close view of my patio itself. I can use the size here to make it smaller. So that might be like dimension 6, or I can make them bigger, or like a dimensions 18, just by this wheel here. So I think that that looks nice just about there. You can also mess with the angle to put it on a bias. So if you want to put on 45 degree, which sometimes looks cool, you're going to just go to 45. In my case, I'm going to leave it 0, meaning just 90 degrees, and keep it there. If I zoom out, go to our next options, we can change the elevation. So like if we're working in advanced classes with raised patios and elevated areas, you can technically raise it, but in this case, we just want it at 0. And the height defaults to 2 inches thick. Going down a border, we can choose the material just like anything else. So I'm going to double click the border. I'm going to go back down to the Unilock in Michigan where we had it, go to pavers. If we scroll down, there should give some Holland options, like here, Brussels block, Brussels coping. What other ones are there? Eco Priora. Here we go. Holland Stone, Sandstone, Soldier. And that's a running bond version. I want to use the Soldier with the Holland Stone. So I'm going to double click that. And we're going to zoom in and notice that it's showing a weird seam, as we can see here. It's a really weird seam. And the reason that there's a weird seam there is because Holland Stone, as we know, is a 4x8 stone. But for some reason, the border always defaults to 10 inches. So border length is 10 inches. We simply just go down to 8, and we make it an even 8-inch 4x8. So if we zoom out, we can see that we have a perfect 8-inch Soldier Holland Stone. If I want to change the color, I simply double click it, and maybe I want an accent color. And let's see what could work here. Someone eat. There's nothing I see that's like a brown. Actually, this town hall kind of looks nice. Let's use the terracotta to match the roof of the house. This terracotta one. So if we zoom out, it's a bold look to it, but something you can use. I actually like the other one better, so what I'm going to do is just go back, switch back to that, and it kept the same color. And now we've got our patio. Okay, now's a really good time to save the program here. I've actually already saved this because I am working in sections, but normally you would come up here to save and it will prompt you. I'm going to do save as, so it prompts this. You name the session, which I've named RLA Training Session Intro 1, and simply press save. It's a good idea to do this a few times throughout because it doesn't autosave, just so you don't lose any progress that you've made along the way. Now that we've done that, let's go back to our plan mode and add a little bit of framing to this area here. What we're going to do is put in a fence. So in plan view mode, we're going to click fence, and it doesn't matter which fence we use right now because we're going to change the material over here afterwards. So we're going to outline just a basic fence. You can see as I'm pulling down, it's kind of going left and right. Here's a shortcut. If I hold shift, it won't allow me to go left and right. It will only go up and down on that line. So if I let go of shift, it'll go everywhere when I pull down. But if I hold shift, it'll pull on the grid line completely vertical. So I'm holding shift and I'm going here, clicking, left click. Again, I'm holding shifts. So this way it won't allow me to go left and right. It'll only go along that line. Click again, and then coming up, I'm holding the wheel to scroll even while this is going. And I've got a fence there. I don't need to close the fence in the front of the house because likely it wouldn't close. So that's the outside boundaries. I want to use the same fence to do on the sides here. And then one more. So something to know here, to complete a line, since we're not closing it and it's still prompting that, once I have my second line here, if I right click, it will end the task and just do the fence line. So for example, if I do it over here, I click here and I come along here. If I click it once, it's going to give me another thing and I can't end the operation. But if I press right click, it's going to complete it. And that's that. Since I want to get rid of that, I just press delete and that gets rid of it. So what we didn't do here, well, if we go to perspective first and we look, we've got now a fence that goes around our whole property. I want to put a gate in here. So up here under building into fence gate, I simply just go fence gate, I drag it to right there, and I can put it there. Let's change the fence first, the style, before we change the gate. So I'm going to click on this fence. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to click on this fence, which is going to add to my selection, meaning I've selected both of them simultaneously. And I'm going to click on that one. So all the fences that I built are now selected. And we're going to change the type of fence that we want. So this is going to show up here and shows you all the different fence options there are. Why don't we do fence that looks like this one? So you see that it changed all my fences, and because I selected all three, it changed all three together. That changed the fence style, and you can go down into the details on the right side here and really dial in a lot of detail, which I think is a little frivolous and a bit of a waste of time on something that's not so important to our hardscaping design. But if you want to, you can really dial in exactly what the fence looks like. What I do like to do, however, is change the material. So if we double click on the material here, it'll pull up the wood and you can choose any kind of wood option. So if I want like a distressed wood, let's choose that, and it comes across kind of gray. Looks a little dead in my opinion. So let's choose it again. Maybe this distressed. Yeah, looks better. That looks better. Now that we've changed this material, we can change the gate option just by going up to the right, double clicking the options. Let's do a single gate that looks like this. And then you see how it changed the fence to accommodate the single gate instead of the double gate there. And now, if we zoom out, we can see that we're fully intact with the fence around our entire property. All right, so let's continue building our design. Okay, now that we're back in plan view here, we're going to kind of start from the bottom up. So we'll notice in perspective that everything is grass here, but we want everything outside of the turf that we're going to build next to be dirt and or planter. So the way we can do that easily is go to the plan view, select region, change your material here to mulch. It might default to grass, but we're going to change it to mulch. I like to use this last one, mulch 53. We're going to make sure that our curve type is set to angle as opposed to curve. So angle here. And then we're just going to outline what we've built already to create our dirt planter. It's going to show up as mulch all around, but keep grass in the environment outside of what we just built. So if we go back to perspective, we can see that now we have a dirt backyard, but everything else is grass in the surrounding environment. Back to plan, we can then start going to work on our turf area. So the turf we want to build with some curves to it, because everything else to this point has been right angles and straight lines. So if we go back to the region and double click up the top and select a grass, let's use a dark grass so it contrasts. Now grass 13, double click that, and then we're going to start our line. So you can see the curve type defaults to straight. So it's just going to follow along the grid lines. You can do angles like that, but you're not going to be able to do any curves with it. So just to finish this and see what it looks like, is like that. We want to add curves to it, so we just make sure it's selected, press delete, and get rid of that. Go back to our region, make sure that's selected still, and then go to curve. So if we zoom in a little bit and take a look, we're going to start here, and our first line is going to be straight. You can see the right angle on the first point. When we click the second point and drag, you can see it's starting to make a curve and adjusting the line where it says 12.7. So let's rough out kind of a kidney shape. Imagine like a kidney shaped pool or something like this. And then we're going to go through the patio, just finish our line. Grass is going to by default go below the patio. So in this case, we can go right below the patio, but so we can learn how to use these a little bit more accurately, let's adjust the points that we just made. So with the turf being selected, if it's not, you simply just click into it and select it, and you go over here to the right to see edit points. So in edit points, it gives you access to select any of the yellow points that we created. When you select it, and you know it's selected because it turns red. Now you can take it and drag it wherever you want. There's also these two arrows. The blue will allow you to drag on the vertical axis and not to the left and right. And conversely, the red will allow you to move on the horizontal axis and not up and down. So that can work with finer movements when you're not in the magnet mode. But for now, we can just drag it to wherever we want. And we're going to keep this one on the right angle. This one here, we want to drag along the same grid line over to the side, but we don't want this curve at the top. So what I'm going to do is select angle, the right angle there, so that that's a straight line, but then continues to curve outside. So when I click on this one, you'll see that it defaults to the curved one, and this one is the angled. There are two different options to the right, which allow you to use wings to finer tune. So if we go to this curved one, it comes up with these little handlebars or wings, so you can fine tune what that looks like on an angle, or this one to fine tune on a curve what that curve looks like. So it's a little bit finer point dexterity practice needed to be able to do this, but can get pretty cool shapes as a result. For the sake of this training, let's just keep them all curves. And actually, I went not as far as I wanted to, so let's bump these out a little bit. And effectively, we're just leaving a planter along the back side of the fence. And this curves back. And again, that will look fine because it just disappears this line underneath the patio. But let's learn how to make that snap to the edge of the patio itself. And simply, all you have to do is add one point along this line. And when something's selected below the edit points, you can select insert points. And as you drag along the line, you can see a plus below your cursor and a yellow point. You simply click it. We want this to be an angled point. we're going to drag it down, and you can see that now this follows along this line. This one still curves. That's because this one over here is still a curved line. So if that switches over to the angle, then this now locks into that shape. By making this one the angle, we lost this curve. So what I'll do is simply just add a point, make sure that that one's a curve, and then we can adjust it to get the kind of bulging shape we were after. And when we select edit points one more time, we click that, it locks in our shape. Go back to perspective, and we can see that we've now created a turf area all the way around the backyard. One cool feature here is that if you scroll to the bottom of the options on the right, you can do add 3D grass, and it actually puffs up the grass and makes it look realistic. So if we turn off the grid, it even shows a little bit clearer what that looks like. Now 5 inches is pretty tall for the grass that we use. The turf that we use is only about 2.5 inches. So if we go down to grass height short 3 inches, it's a little bit more realistic with the turf that we'll be using, and still give some dimension to it, especially when we come down pretty low. It looks kind of cool. So now we've got our planter areas along the side. We've got our turf in the middle, and we've got our simple patio. This isn't the end of our design though, because we want to add a walkway from here to connect. We want to add another little maybe circle patio in the corner for a fire pit as part of our design. Maybe over here we can put a circle patio, and probably a little pathway over here to a little storage area with pavers on the side along. This is known as, well, what I call it is a wing in designs. So it's not completely necessary that we do it, because it's usually just where a bunch of junk or old grills or something or tools end up. But for this case, we're going to add more pavers. So it's easier to add pavers in the plan view. So if you go back down to the plan view and zoom out, we're going to add, go back to building, go back to patio, and we're going to start where the gate is. Simply come down. We're going to make it 4 feet wide. Okay, that's 4.6. So if you ever make a mistake and you want to change the last point you just made, you just press backspace and we'll delete the last one you did. So if you zoom in, if I can get to 4 feet, now I have some dexterity to be able to go up here. And that's 3 feet wide, which is less than what I want. So simply go back to edit points. I can squeeze this one out to 4 feet. I'm noticing that I turned the grid off. I can go back to the grid and make this a little bit easier. Squish that out to 4. So now I've got 4 feet there. Perfect L, 4 feet. Edit points will turn that off. And now I've got a little walkway coming from the gate. The material, obviously, we want to match this. Easiest way of doing that is click on the material that you want. Go up to the material, which is the paver field. This little drop-down arrow will allow you to copy that. So if you copy that material, then click on this patio that we want to change, go to that same area, drop it down, paste, and it'll automatically copy that. Do the same thing with the border. So we'll click on this one we want to do, go down a border, copy, click on the other area we want to change, go to border, we go to paste. All of a sudden, we've got an exact replica of the material with one problem that we want to fix. It doesn't really make sense to have two borders meeting each other here. So we want to remove the border on the walkway where it meets the patio. We simply select this L, walkway, go down a border, and scroll down to where it says edit border. Now it makes all the edges of the border live. And when you toggle them, you can turn off and on your border. So we just go to the side we want to remove. We'll remove that. Select edit border again, which is going to turn off the toggle. And all of a sudden, we've removed the border on that side only. I am noticing that this defaulted, even after copying the material, it defaulted to the 10 inches. So we have this weird little line with the double, triple miter in the corner. We simply go back to the right-hand side, make the length 8 inches, and we're back to our 8-inch border. Go back to perspective and make sure that looks right. That looks pretty good. I'm noticing that my gate is a little askew off this grid. So what I can do is click it and then hold my red line to move it over one. And now the red arrow will allow me to move along that horizon. And I'm right dead on the pathway. Again, a little detail, but if we're going to do this right, we might as well do it fully. Now let's make this pathway somewhat continue on along the side and finish off this area over here. So we go back to our plan. Rather than creating a whole new patio, what we can do is simply select this walkway. We're going to copy it. So Control C on Windows or Command C on Mac, and then we're going to paste it. Control V on Windows or Command V on Mac, and it just doubled up our patio. So since we learned how to edit points, we can simply go to the right, edit our points, and redistribute what this looks like. I'm zooming too far out, so I can control here just by using my blue arrow. This one can come all the way up to there. This one all the way up to there. And on this line, perpendicular, I'm 4 feet. That turns into a 5 foot along the side there. And we left like a little planter there. So if we click edit points, that'll lock that in. But I want to fix the border because the border was adjusted from last time. That one was removed. We want to add it back in. This one is now in. We want that removed, so we're going to delete that. You can see on the cursor there's a little plus minus. So that adds it, that subtracts it. And it will only work for the section you've got selected. So obviously I can't take it off of this patio or the other walkway. It's only the one we got selected. So when we're done with that, click edit border again, go back to perspective, and we've got our hardscaping set up. Now that we have our rough sketch of the hardscaping by the house, let's add a little fire pit circle area in the bottom corner here. And the way we can do that is go back to plan mode. And let's just copy and paste this patio here, which can Control C, Control V. So I've duplicated that patio. And then what I can do to make a quick circle rather than messing around with editing points and trying to create a perfect circle with the curved points, I'm going to go down to shape options, which is next to edit points, and go to load shape. And with load shape, it has a bunch of pre-designed fill regions like for pools or planters or something like that. But if I go to geometric, I should find a circle, press OK. It's going to turn that into a perfect circle. So if I go to here, I can actually increase or decrease the size of my circle depending on how big I want to get. So if I want to tuck this into the corner, I think that looks pretty good right there. Maybe something like that. So we go into perspective, we can see that we've now added a perfect circle into the corner. That's going to be a cool little fire pit sitting area. Back to plan view, I'm realizing what would look nice is that if we take this turf and added a mow strip alongside of it that tied into the seating area, that might be really nice. So if you select the turf area, you'll notice that it allows you to add a border here. So if you say add border, it's going to throw in the standard border that comes default. But if we go to another patio area and select it and just copy the border that we have like we did before, select the turf and paste it, it's going to show up there. Now remember, like last time, it defaulted back to that 10-inch wide border. Go back to 8 inches it will have a perfect mow strip side there. And then we can delete the borders that are on the sides that we don't want. So edit border. We don't want a border there. We don't want a border on this side. We don't want a border on this side. And that's pretty good. So I'm noticing, however, that this gives a kind of a weird cutoff there. So simply edit the points of your turf. And we'll just raise this up a little bit so it dies down. That dies there. Maybe we can make this a little bit smoother transition. Yeah, just like that. Something like this. Nice. This one here isn't really hitting the corner like I want it to. So here's a time where we can learn an extra shortcut here. If you hold shift and then hit the up or down or left or right arrows on your keyboard, I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to click up. It has like little micro adjustments to go up, down, right, left. So if I drag this, it jumps per grid line, which is a little bit too much for what we want to do. Even if I do this, it's a little too much for what I want to do. So what I can do is just hold shift and then use my arrow key to do a little bit more micro adjustments, and that's fine. It's coming in at a weird angle, so I can bump this out. And that looks a lot better. I could even add in a point to make that round a little bit cleaner. And then this one, I can hold a point and I can just bump it down. And then I've got a pretty good looking border going all the way through. Zoom out. Yeah, that looks good. Edit points, we'll lock that in, go back to perspective. And now we've got a pretty good looking area here. The issue is that we're seeing is that the patio is 2 feet tall and the turf is, 2 inches tall and the turf is lower. So what we can do here to adjust for that is go to adjust the height of the turf itself. So we are going to height taper, make 100, and then height of the turf, we're going to bump up 2 inches so it sits at the same level. The reason we did the height taper first is because if it's at 0, it does like a weird bulge where just the middle of the turf area raises. We want it all to raise, so 100% makes the whole area raise 2 inches. So that just allowed us to raise the border and the turf to the whole area. Problem is now that the turf is coming through because we turned on the 3D grass. So to fix that, we have to adjust in plan view where our turf is coming. So it's easy on the walkway here because we just edit the points and have them die there. The easiest way to get around the grass coming through this patio without a ton of workarounds is pretty simple. So this one was easy because we just moved the points of the turf to meet this edge and delete the border. But this one here, it looks kind of sloppy if you start going around this border. So what we're going to do is just simply select the fire pit seating area, go up to height, and just click it up 1 to 3 inches, and now it sits above the grass line. So it's not ideal because technically if you go in here, the border is going to sit up an inch above this border, but really for the sake of presentation, you're not going to be able to tell the difference, and you can avoid a big workaround there. Okay, now we're going to add some softscaping and trees to our project here. So this is looking pretty sharp with our softscaping and our hardscaping, our turf and pavers, but now we're going to add some trees to really bring this to life. One interesting thing about trees and shrubs too is that it adds more shadows to the area. So you can see the fence is drawing a shadow, and the shadows bring things to life and make things look more real. We want to be careful not to obscure what we're doing, meaning hiding some of the patio and stuff. But let's see what we can do with some trees. So under landscape at the top here, there are all different areas at the end for plant, plant fill, and plant row. Plant also includes trees, so we're just going to start with that. Click plant. It defaults to this big guy here. So over here we can select from any kind of trees that we want to use. I recommend taking a look online and search your region what kind of trees are indigenous so that you can plant in your design what kind of trees make the most sense for the region that you're in. So someone that I like to use, well, let's say we're in Arizona now. Arizona white oak, Arizona cypress, Arizona cypress, the second one, Arizona white oak and walnut, Arizona ash. Let's say we're in Arizona and we're going to use this one here. I'm going to plant it in the grid right in the middle. We're going to move around, say that's a pretty good size. If it's too big or too small, if you come down to the starting age, this slider will actually make it lower, make it smaller depending on the age, and full grown can be pretty gigantic. So find a spot that looks about right for your reference tree that you're trying to match and or the space that you're trying to fill. So I think that one looks pretty good there. Let's place that one there. And then we'll put one more. So I'm going to select plant again. I'm going to do Arizona white oak. It's probably be pretty big. Yeah. So let's place this maybe in this area here. It's adding a lot of shade. So what I want to do is make it smaller. Once it's selected, let's move it down. So it's giving a little bit of shade, but it's not taking up the entire thing. And we have our two trees there. This little area here is a planter. We can use plant fill, which is an entire region, or plant row, which is just a straight line. So sometimes it's easier to do it on the plan view to get a good line in the middle. Start on one side, go to the other, right click to finish that, go back to perspective, and you've planted a row of the same plants. Now there's a couple cool things that you can do here. And what I'm noticing is that this is spreading into the patio. So you simply go back to plan view, edit your points, select this, and I'm going to fine tune, move it over by holding shift in my arrow to bring that in. I'll go to the other side, shift and the other arrow to drag that in so that I'm not overflowing onto the walkway. Edit points to bring back, perspective. Now that's good. It's contained within the planter area we're looking at there. So I don't really like these yellow things, these yellow flowers. I'm going to double click it and I'm going to put in some, let's see here, some shrubs. Come through and just look for something that looks nice. We'll start with these guys. So those are pretty big. Let's bring the starting age down, see if we can make them smaller. We did, but it looks pretty unnatural since they're the same exact things in row, left to right. So here's how we can get away with that and change it. So you have current plant over on the right hand side, and there are up to 8 that you can put in this plant row. They're all disabled after the 1. So if we go to 2 and then simply click enable, it's going to alternate what plants are in here. So our second plant, we can go in here, maybe choose some grass, something like this. Make it smaller. I don't like all that much. Shrubs. There you go. This defaulted to models, but if you go to ultra res, it'll give you more options, including ornamental grass, which I like to use. So if you use some blue oat grass, that usually is a pretty nice color that offsets. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. And then maybe we'll add in one more. Current plant, 3, enable it. Let's add in another plant here. We'll go to ultra res, ornamental grass, and we'll put in some Japanese bloodgrass just for a little color. And now we have a pretty cool looking little garden here with interesting colors and things that are going on. Uh, there are other selections at the top here, plant row, where you can add more plants and really squish them in, which looks cool. Actually looks a little bit more intentional. We can take this, copy and paste it if we want to do it along the back fence or along the side fence. So maybe we want to put it right here as well. So probably the easier way to do that is to go back to plan, make sure this is selected, Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and I just duplicated that. And move it over here. And we have to go vertical. This is going horizontal. We need to go vertical. So if you hover over the circle here, it gives you this wheel. You simply turn it until it locks into vertical, and that will make it go vertical for you. It's going to be a little long for the area that we're doing here. So if we go to adjust edit points and we bring this down, we can do that. It's going to be pretty crowded because we added all these extra plants in here. So let's go back down to the 10 that it had originally, close the edit points. We'll notice that it's there. So I'm going to micro adjust so it's not in the walkway. And we've got two pretty nice little planted areas. Okay. Now on the back side of the house, let's flip around and we're going to do a shrub. So this hedge option allows you to start in a point. Let's do it in plan view. Start in a point, drag all the way down, drag all the way over. And if you right click to finish, it's going to make a shrub the entire way there, which is a really easy way to get a pretty organized shape for shrubs. Shrubs are a good way to put against the fence, against the house. We're going to delete this here. What I like to do is do a plant row like we did with the others. Let's go back to plan view. Plant row. It's defaulted to a curve, so I'm going to change that to my angle. Right click, and it's going to default to these. But if we choose a tree and we do American Arbor Vitae, these are like the mini cypress trees that look really cool against a fence. These are obviously really small, so we'll just add some age to them. We could do less plants if we want. And that looks pretty sharp. So now we're adding some serious character to our space in the back. The last thing you can do here with plant fill is do an entire area as a fill. And it's going to fill it with flowers or whatever it is. So this point is actually an angle, square, but now it's an angle. It does tend to kind of spill over. So if you go a little bit inside the space that you want to, you probably get better results. It might be easier to see from the plan view here. A lot of times these kinds of things are easier from the plan view. It's a little bit of a funky shape, but I think it'll work for this space. Yes. Fine tune it. And then you can choose some flowers or some cover. Really anything you want. It's going to fill in that space. You can also do the same thing we did with the other planter areas and add another, enable it, throw in another plant, something like that, to make it look pretty clean. So let's do that, maybe spread it down the side of the walkway. And the way I do that is I insert point, anywhere on this line, insert another point and just drag it up. Again, I don't want this spreading over to the walkway, so I'm going to just move them over a little bit. Holding shift and my arrows are finer tuned. And edit points to stop. Go to perspective, and now we got a little walkway there. Let's try to fill that out some more. Okay. Pretty good. We'll just keep the other side. And I think we're all set to go. Now that we have all our landscaping in to match our example property, or just what we're creating in our head in this case, let's add some further details to make it look like it's a real backyard. So under the landscape tab at the top, we can go to accessory, and we can add nearly unlimited options of what we want to put in the backyard. We don't want to overdo it to make it look crowded and take away from the hardscaping and turf that we're actually building in the property. But adding some furniture definitely makes it look homey. So if you go to the actual furniture tab, there are a ton of options to choose from. I think it's the easiest to go to the sets. So if you go down, you've got a patio set here and here. You've got some lawn chairs. You've got a couch, some bigger furniture sets, patio sets, picnic tables. Let's take this guy here, a smaller one. It's always good not to make them too big so then it looks crowded. We'll put it there. And again, if you want to rotate it the other way, you just drag on the wheel, spin it 90 degrees and stop it. Do that there. We can add, maybe this goes here and then a couch goes out there. Yeah, we'll put that under there. Go back to accessory, back here, and a couch set maybe here. Spin it the other way. Will it be too big? That fits. That's fine there. Okay, in this corner here, we want to add a fire pit in the middle. Plan view is probably easier to get it right in the center. So if we go to, again, accessory, you go to fireplaces, there's a ton to choose from here. So to match something similar, you want to use this guy here. And it will automatically center. If you're dragging it around when you're on the grid, it'll center. You press enter. And then you can have a nice fire pit there. You can make it a little bit bigger, like this, but this does the width, the depth, and the height all together. Because if you notice down here, it says scale evenly. I don't necessarily want it to get higher because fire pits are generally the same height no matter how big they are. So if you keep it where it is, then you click off scale evenly, you can adjust the width and the depth, the size you want. It will keep the same height. Otherwise, the height will grow as you get bigger. One important thing to know about fire pits is that you might want to change the color or the material to fit into what you're selling. So on the right hand, there's a caret that drops down to edit materials. There are the materials for the fire rocks, and there are materials for the siding that you can double click and then choose something else here. In this case, we'll just change the color to, say, choose something like this, a little darker. Okay, that works for me. Actually, that's kind of a weird yellow. Let's change it again. More of a tin. That works. And you changed your material there. Let's throw some like Adirondack chairs on here so we show it as a seating area. So go back to accessory, click on the model, go back to furniture, and then go to the chairs, start here and see what looks nice. These guys could be nice. Something comfortable looking. This could be nice. Going to maybe throw it on the plan view so we can grid them together. So to do multiple, what we can do actually, and delete that, go back to our accessory, and again, hold Shift, and go back to our accessory. If you hold Control, we can place multiples. So each time you click, it just stays on your cursor. So that way you don't have to keep going back and hitting accessory each time. So once we've got that here, let's turn them in, rotate so it faces the middle. And this one I'm just going to go the other way. And this one's going to go upwards. And when we come here, we've got 4 nice chairs equally spread out and they all match. So what I like to do is maybe match this wood color to these so all the furniture is the same color, because it looks like the cushions are about the same color material as these cushions. But let's make the wood match this material here. So if you click on here and you caret down, edit materials, find which one is the material for the chair. It's that one right there. We're just going to select this caret and copy it. Press OK. Select on this chair. And then I think we can hold Control for all of them. As long as all the same materials are chosen, we've selected all 4. And we're going to paste the material on there so that it does it all together. And all of a sudden you've got 4 chairs that look similar to what these are pretty quickly and pretty easily. This is looking out of place now, so let's change that to like a gray color. Let's find gray, make it darker. Much better. So although the patio is tan, I think the gray looks better on top to match the chairs and the furniture. Okay, so we got our furniture out. Anything more might be a little much for material. Let's go further in this and select and get the couch cushion color, which is this one here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to this here, and we're going to change the cushion colors to match up. It's the second one. Paste. And now we'll do the actual material too. Copy. Select this. Edit materials. Paste. Now all our furniture matches pretty easily. Okay. The last touch to make it look pretty realistic is to add people. If you go to Utilities and hit Character, you can select animals. You put a duck in there if you really want to, or a seagull. There is a duck. I have a pug, so I always put a pug in, but dogs, if you try to match what they have there, you can get a lot of buy-in and emotional buy-in from our clients. But let's put in a dog, this guy here. Put them over here. You can spin them. You make it so they're lying down. That's actually a good look right there. Maybe someone over sitting by the fire pit. When you go back to character, select a human. Maybe it could be anyone at first because we want to do multiples. So once they're selected, again hit Control and do 1, 2, 3, 4. It's easier doing it this way because you have to keep going back. You can select a different person, it just happens quicker. So we'll do girl here. I'll switch, change this guy to this guy. Change this guy to here. Now see if we can select all of them. Batch sitting, no. So we're going to make these guys sit. 2 of them sit in these chairs, one by the dog. So you just go to sitting in chair, And we'll lock this guy in here. Change the angle so make sure they're actually sitting. And we can fine tune adjust again by holding shift and using the arrows. Let's make this gal sit down too. Sitting on chair, spin her around, maybe facing him with the dog. Now in the middle. Okay, that scene is complete. Let's have these guys sitting in these chairs over here. Go over to sitting on chair. Sitting on chair. Spin her. We can up the ante here and go back to landscape, accessory, go to other, and they have a drink cooler that we can place on the table. So it defaults to ground level, but you simply just click it on the ground, go to elevation, and raise it up till it's on the table level, and then just move it over so it sits on the table. All of a sudden these guys got some drinks. Bring that to life. I think what we'll do is put a couple people laying out on the grass. So we go to accessories, furniture, down to the sets again. Patio set here. Use this one. Spin it. And maybe we'll steal this material again. Edit materials. Copy it. Click on this. Paste our material. Okay, now it's more gray. So let's steal this. Paste that. Cool. Now that's matching. And we'll add two more characters. So if we hit this guy, hold shift and select her as well. We're going to copy by going Control C and then paste by going Control V. And I just duplicated them. Let's make them so that they different people. We'll select one and we'll go to someone in a bathing suit. We'll go to a guy in a bathing suit. And then we will do sunbathing reclined. Spin him around so he's actually going to be on the chair. It's not quite high enough for this one here, so we can just click up the elevation until he's literally on there. Move him back on the chair. Perfect. Move it so she is sunbathing reclined. On here, rotate and raise. So now we got two people hanging out there. Actually, it might be nice to throw this over here instead. Okay. So now we've got two people hanging out. We're really exploring what you can do with this space here. We've got people sitting on the fire pit. We've got people laying out in chairs. We've got people on the couch. And maybe, just maybe, because the grass is so big, we can add in a child, little boy, playing. I think there's a ball we can use. Jogging gives the action thing. And actually, when you do a 3D walkthrough video, you'll be running on this line here. But that's topic for another day. Landscape, go into accessories, sporting. Put a golf ball here and just make it way bigger for that soccer ball. Okay. So now we got pretty filled up with what we want to do. Next step is finding the angles that we want to finish this picture and the lighting that's going to best capture what we're doing. All right, let's find a way to finish off here and do some finishing touches to make this sing. What I like to do, this is a little extra, but I think it really gives a better quality to the finished result, is go to plan view, zoom out, select the house, copy it, Control C, paste it, Control V, and just move it. Create kind of a neighborhood. Do it again, Control C, Control V, copy it, and move it. And then maybe copy all three, Control C, Control V, and spin them around so it's like on the other side of the fence. All of a sudden, we've got a neighborhood so that when we take pictures, it looks like it's actually in someone's neighborhood. When you go back to perspective, now we've got all these houses here. We'll actually move these guys back so we have room for the camera. To make them look different, all you have to do is select the house and then change the siding. This one could be white shingle, and the roof can be just a normal tile. This one can be some sort of a farmhouse, the roof. There you go. So now we have three different houses, more or less, and it looks like a neighborhood. I mean, you can really go to town and put in fences and things like that to extend, but I think this now just looks better for our angles. So it's the easiest way to do it is to take, a top-down angle, but I feel that it shows better if you show images from the level of someone standing actually in the picture. So say you're 6 feet tall, what view would you have if you're 6 feet tall? So that's pretty cool there because you can see the fire pit, maybe you're standing on the corner, and what does the rest of the yard look like? That shows a really good angle. It shows the house in the back. The next thing you want to do once you've got all this here is this little arrow, this little sun at the bottom brings up the time of day. If you go, it defaults to 9 a.m., but you can move all through the day and you can see the shadows move because the sun is actually moving in this environment. Once you get to 4 o'clock, it's the golden hour, and the shadows and the light look the best, but everything dims. You can play with the direction of the sun too, so that spins around so it can play with the shadows. I like to find one so that it gives a little shine. So if we're going here, you can now see the pavers and the fire pit are starting to shine. It's a good look there. That's a better look because you get the sun in their face. But if people are laying out, it probably doesn't make sense to go this late in the day. So we come maybe 1 o'clock, direction of the sun. This should relate technically to the house itself so they can see where the shadows are going to be, but you have to do a little research on the direction of where the sun is coming from in the actual property. We press OK here, and now we have a really good angle for the fire pit. And the little boy playing, and the people I want to capture as much as I can. Okay, so now that we've got our scene set, at least for this one here, we're going to export a folder, a file to a folder. So we go to File, and save it along the way. Export viewport to file. Viewport is the actual photo that it's going to render. It's going to look much better than what we're looking at here because it employs a lot of rendering effects to it. So we're going to find out where we're going to go and put it. I'm going to put it into a client folder, 2025. I'm going to create a new one. This is for test RLA client in Phoenix. Open that up, and we're going to call this test client 3D rendering number 1 because we're going to do more than one. So the file name is going to be this. It's going to save to where we just sent it. The resolution I like to bump it up to 1920 by 1080, which is an HD size. Render style normal is fine. And we're going to press OK. This will process. Okay, now that that's rendered, we can open the exported file. We just click yes. And it will pop up. And the grid lines will be removed. The windows will show reflections of what's in the actual environment, whereas in the original, they just show kind of sketchy ones. And everything looks a lot sharper and crisper. So you can click out of that and stop there. You find a couple more angles, maybe from this side. And we're just using the same controls to show good view. What's going on, maybe from over here. Get some of the trees in, looks good. Some of the pavers that shows materials. You can even technically go inside the house and look at a hero perspective through the window. That looks pretty cool. So they know what they're going to see going outside. Get creative with it. And go out and sell the job. That's the name of the game. Good luck out there.